Hello, guys. Welcome to Petals of Revenge, where we share stories of justice served and hearts healed. If this story touches your heart, please like, subscribe, share, and comment below with your thoughts. I stood in the hospital bathroom, staring at my reflection in the fluorescent lit mirror. My eyes were swollen from 3 days of crying, dark circles carved deep beneath them like bruises that would never heal. The white coat hanging on the door behind me felt foreign now, as if it belonged to someone else entirely. Dr. Vivian Carter, head of medical ethics. That woman seemed like a stranger. 51 minutes. That's how long my daughter Aria lived in this world. 51 precious, heart-wrenching minutes where I held her impossibly tiny hand and whispered promises I would never be able to keep. Born at 24 weeks due to severe preeclampsia, she fought with everything her miniature body could muster. But sometimes fighting isn't enough. The nurses had been kind, their voices soft and careful around the edges of my devastation. They understood loss in ways that civilians never could. They knew that when a mother loses a baby, part of her dies too, and what remains must learn to breathe again in a world that suddenly makes no sense. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to wash away the exhaustion that had settled into my bones. Lucas would be here soon to pick me up. My husband, Dr. Lucas Carter, chief of surgery at Metropolitan General, had been my anchor through this nightmare. While I crumbled, he held us both together with the same steady hands that saved lives every day. The discharge papers sat folded in my purse, clinical words that could never capture what we had endured. Severe preeclampsia, premature delivery, neonatal death. Each phrase a small knife cutting into flesh already raw with grief. My phone buzzed against the marble countertop. A text from Selena, my younger sister. Still coming to the wedding tomorrow, right? You promised. It's going to be perfect. I stared at the message, my stomach churning. Selena's wedding. In all the chaos of the past week, I had almost forgotten. Not forgotten exactly. How could I forget my only sister's wedding day? But the thought of celebrating anything, of smiling and pretending joy while my arms ached with emptiness, felt impossible. But I had promised. Months ago, when the save the dates went out, when my belly was round with hope and Aria kicked against my ribs like she couldn't wait to meet the world. Selena had been so excited about becoming an aunt, buying tiny pink dresses and planning elaborate photo shoots with the flower girl. The irony tasted bitter in my mouth. Lucas found me there, gripping the sink with white knuckles. He didn't say anything, just wrapped his arms around me from behind and rested his chin on top of my head. In the mirror, we looked like ghosts of ourselves. "We don't have to go," he said quietly. "Selena will understand." Would she? I wasn't entirely sure. Selena had always been the dramatic one, the center of attention sister who turned every moment into a performance. When I told her about Aria, her first response had been to ask if I could schedule the delivery around her bachelorette weekend. I had laughed it off then, thinking it was just typical Selena thoughtlessness. Now, with grief making everything sharp and clear, I wondered if there was something darker underneath. "She's my sister," I whispered. "It's her wedding day." Lucas turned me around to face him, his hands gentle on my shoulders. "Viv, you just buried your daughter 3 days ago. No one would blame you for staying home." But staying home felt like letting Aria down somehow. Like admitting that her brief life didn't matter, that it couldn't coexist with celebration. I needed to prove to myself that I could still function, still show up for the people I loved, even with this gaping wound in my chest. "It'll be okay, Leet. It's just one day." The drive to the venue passed in a blur of suburban landscapes and forced conversation. Lucas kept glancing at me from the driver's seat, worry creased between his eyebrows. I focused on breathing, on putting one moment in front of the other like stepping stones across a raging river. The Whitmore estate was everything Selena had dreamed of: rolling lawns, white columns, fairy lights strung between ancient oak trees. Cars lined the circular driveway, guests in pastels and summer suits making their way toward the outdoor ceremony space. I watched them through the passenger window, all these people gathering to celebrate love and new beginnings, and felt like an intruder at my own sister's wedding. "We can still leave," Lucas said as he parked. "Right up until the last second, we can turn around and go home." I shook my head, already reaching for the door handle. "I'm fine." Really? The ceremony was beautiful in the way that weddings are supposed to be beautiful. Selena glowed in her ivory gown, her dark hair swept up in an elaborate updo that had probably taken 3 hours to achieve. Then, her groom looked at her like she hung the moon and stars personally for his benefit. They were both 28, both convinced that love conquered all and that their story would be different from all the others. I remembered feeling that way once, standing at an altar not so different from this one, promising Lucas forever with absolute certainty. Before I learned that sometimes forever gets cut short at 51 minutes. The vows were traditional, borrowed from centuries of other couples who had stood in similar spaces making similar promises. I tried to focus on the words to let them wash over me like white noise, but my mind kept drifting to a different ceremony, a much smaller, much sadder one where Lucas and I had said goodbye to dreams we hadn't even finished dreaming yet. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. I clapped along, my hands moving automatically while my heart remained somewhere else entirely. Lucas reached over and squeezed my knee, a silent check-in that I answered with what I hoped looked like a reassuring smile. Cocktail hour was harder. People wanted to talk, to catch up, to ask how I was doing. Most of them didn't know about Aria, why would they? She had never had a chance to meet the world, to be introduced at family gatherings or shown off in Christmas photos. Her existence began and ended in a hospital room that most of these people would never see. Vivian! My Aunt Margaret descended on me with the enthusiasm of someone who had already sampled the open bar. "Look at you glowing. Pregnancy suits you beautifully, dear." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked down at my dress navy blue, carefully chosen to hide the fact that my body hadn't yet recovered from pregnancy, that I still looked like a woman who should be holding a baby instead of a glass of champagne I couldn't stomach drinking. "Actually, Aunt Margaret," I started, but she was already moving on, distracted by someone else's conversation. This happened 3 more times before I escaped to the bathroom, each well-meaning comment a fresh wound. In the mirror, I practiced responses. "We lost the baby." "She was born too early." "Thank you for asking, but we're not ready to talk about it." None of them felt right. All of them felt like admitting defeat. When I emerged, Lucas was waiting with my mother, both of them wearing identical expressions of concern. "Sweetheart," Mom said, reaching for my hands. "Maybe we should." "I'm fine," I said for what felt like the 100th time that day. "It's Selena's day. I'm not going to ruin it." But even as I said the words, I caught sight of Selena across the lawn, holding court with a group of her college friends, gesturing animatedly as she told some story that had them all laughing. She looked radiant, untouchable, like someone who had never known loss or disappointment. For a moment, I envied her that innocence with a fierceness that surprised me. The reception hall was decorated in blush and gold, every detail orchestrated to Pinterest perfection. Round tables with ivory linens and towering centerpieces of peonies and roses. A sweetheart table where the new couple would sit like royalty surveying their kingdom. A dance floor that gleamed under chandeliers that probably cost more than most people's cars. I found our assigned seats at table 4, strategically placed close enough to the head table to indicate family status but far enough away to avoid any real intimacy. Lucas pulled out my chair with the automatic courtesy of 15 years of marriage, and I settled in next to my cousin David and his wife Sarah, who immediately launched into a detailed account of their recent kitchen renovation. Conversation washed over me like background music. I nodded at appropriate intervals, made the right sounds of interest and approval, but my attention kept drifting to Selena at the head table. She was glowing with happiness, her hand resting on Ethan's arm with the casual possessiveness of someone who had never doubted that her love story would have a happy ending. Had I ever looked like